Hello everybody, this is a continuation of our discussion on small group communication, and for this part of our presentation I would like to begin with Tupman's stages of group development. And we'll get a little bit more into this later in the class, but these are the stages of group development. You see on this chart he begins on the left side with pre-stages of group development, but the basic steps are forming, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning. And the forming stage is when the group members come together and they begin to get acquainted with each other. That's the forming stage. The storming stage is a stage of conflict, as the word storm would imply. And the conflict stage is very important because it helps the group to establish a group culture and group norms. And so the third stage is the norming stage. And as you remember, when we talked about group norms, we talked about those informal rules that groups exist by, and formal rules that are in place. Then there's the performing stage when the task is taken on. And then finally the adjourning phase when the life of the group is over. Some of you may remember the movie, or have seen the movie, Remember the Titans. And as part of an assignment for this class, I'm going to assign you a segment of those, which goes over the 5 stages of group development. What is essential about this movie is it not only talks about the stages of group development, but it talks about some of the things we mentioned earlier about group roles, some of the things we're going to mention in the future about group culture, as far as we're going to talk about group leadership. Those are some things that are very relevant and pointed out very well in this movie. All right, so as groups develop, we get into the topic of group cohesion. And what cohesion is, I speak of cohesion as the glue that holds the group together. So the cohesion is the binding kinds of things that hold the group together. Here you see on the slide, it talks about establishing group climate. And when we talk about establishing group climate, we talk about establishing trust among group members. We talk about supportiveness that group members have for one another. And we also talk, and then we talk about cohesiveness itself. But you'll notice here at the bottom of the screen is this word groupthink. And what groupthink is groupthink is a tendency that happens in groups that the cohesiveness, the glue, becomes over hard and becomes almost a super glue, and the group is not able to function as productively as it should. And so these are the signs of groupthink. Groupthink is, first of all, it is an illusion of invulnerability of the group. So if you think in terms of a leader, or you think in terms of group members who think that they are always right, that they can do no wrong and nothing bad will ever happen to them, that's the sign of groupthink. Another sign of groupthink is an unquestioned belief in the morality of the group, that whatever the group does and says is right and good. Another sign of groupthink is that collective efforts by group members to rationalize faulty decisions. And also it's stereotypical views of of others as weak or evil or ineffective or fake in the way if they oppose you. So they are evil, they are wrong, because we are inherently, as our group, are good. And groupthink has happened many times in not only group history, but in national history. When groupthink happens, the group is now becoming ineffective as a group, and it can eventually come apart at the seams. Groupthink is evidenced by defensive behaviors and statements that the group makes. You can look at these later. I won't get into all of them. And also signs and symptoms, supportive behaviors and statements that are also important for groups to be effective. The next thing I want to talk about for a moment here are the effects of diversity on the group. Small groups develop culture. Group culture is a combination of group norms and group roles, which we talked about earlier. And there's also what is referred to as within group diversity, the diversity that exists within the group that is both observable and implicit as group membership. Part of our examination of group communication also deals with the importance and place of leadership within groups. Leadership is defined as a process of using communication to influence the behaviors and attitudes of others in order to meet group goals. And as such, there are different types of leaders. There is designated leader, and there is also emergent leaders. Designated leaders are usually those who are elected to some form of office or appointed to some function. So for example, in a group, the chairman of the board or the supervisor may be a designated leader. Emergent leaders are leaders who do not have an official capacity, but they do have influence in the group, and they emerge over time and in different places. And so oftentimes, really, the emergent leaders have a lot more influence over group members than those who have designated power sometimes. We talk about the types of power. There's distributive power, which is the power of influence that a leader has over the group. There's integrative power, power of interdependency that is within the group. And then there is designated power, like that earlier. Designated power is given to a certain person or and by the group itself to be the leader, let's say. There are different sources of power. Reward power means that I can give you something positive if you perform well. Punishment or coercive power means I can punish you if things don't happen. There's referent power, and that's the power that is associated with a person or a place. Expert power, and then legitimate power, power that comes from an election, an appointment of those sorts of things. And you'll notice under tensions of leadership, group leaders, those very same tensions we talked about in persuasion, the temper of values, attitudes, policies are some of the tensions of group leaders. All right. There are three types of leaders in a group. The first type I want to mention is the autocratic or authoritarian one. That's the one at the bottom. And this is the kind of the dictator. It's I set the rules. I'm the one who's in charge. I'm the dictator here, and whatever I say goes. At the other end of the spectrum of leadership is the laissez-faire leadership. And laissez-faire leadership is the kind of leader that really lets the group make up its own rules, come to a consensus without undue influence from the leader itself. And the third is democratic leadership, which tries to see and welcome all voices and all opinions in the group so that the group acts together as a unit, as an organism. One of the things that I've learned about leadership styles is not only that a person may have a particular style or be drawn to a particular style, but effective leaders are also those who can moderate their style, can realize at certain times in an organization that the leader needs to be more authoritarian, or at other times the leader needs to step back and let the group function on its own. But always the one we want to aim for is democratic type of leadership in the group. You also see in the slide here competencies of leadership. Clearly and appropriately communicates ideas, can communicate the task, can facilitate discussion, can encourage open dialogue. And good leaders are able to do that. They are also able to place group needs over personal needs. They're able to respect others, and they're able to share in the success and failures of the group.